Hey everyone. Seeing as it's storming outside and my wife's not home yet, I thought, what a time for a pickup video. Got a little bit of everything as usual. It was my birthday, so some of these are gifts, and I'll try to point those out. I'll go over the non-gaming stuff first. All of these but two were gifts. I got Sertorius. Let me fix that there. And the Struggle for Spain. I've already started reading it. I've got about 30 pages left. Philip Matizak wrote this, great author, but this is from Pen and Sword Books, and they do a terrible job editing material. There's a bunch of word repetition, a lot of punctuation errors, but he is a really good author, especially if you like narrative histories, which read more like stories. Yeah, just it's a bit sloppy in general. I told myself I would not buy another Pen and Sword book, but they're the only publisher that puts out a lot of the stuff I'm interested in. A lot of the other publishers put out books that I've already read or that are just too expensive. Because here's another one, Antiochus the Great, Michael Taylor. I have another one of his books. He's a good author. And one more Pen and Sword, which is The Rise of the Seleucid Empire. Uh, you know, these people all deserve better publishers, but there's nothing I can do about it. And if you just want to read something interesting, you pretty much have to suck it up and get Pen and Sword. I have passed on a lot of their books, and I only got these if the ratings were sufficiently high. There's one reviewer in particular on Amazon, JRS, I want to say. He gives really detailed reviews, and if he likes a book, there's a good chance I'll check it out. Um, I bought these two for about $3 each. Oriental Tales and That Mighty Sculptor Time. I will not try to butcher her name. I actually listened to a pronunciation of it, but it was kind of by a robot, I think, and it was a little hard to make out. If I can channel my inner Cajun French grandmothers, they would say Marguerite. They always do the oui at the end. But she wrote The Abyss, which is a book I yammer on about if ever given the chance. And those are a collection. One's a collection of essays, and the other is 4 or 5 actual um, fables, and the rest are short stories she created. They're kind of folkish and horror. My wife got me The Vandals. I like to have as much material as I can on the Germanic or Central European successor kingdoms to the Romans. So I have one on the Goths, one on the Longobards, the Vandals, and I think I'm only missing. No, I have the Franks in the sense that I have a bunch of books on Charlemagne, and they go into the details about that. And finally, I think it's Lysimachus. He was a successor general to Alexander the Great. Look at this. This is supposed to be new. Speaking of which, I actually have another book here, but I don't have it because I had to send it back to Amazon. They sent me a used book instead of a new one, but luckily there was someone who popped up selling a used copy for $11, which was $30 cheaper than new. So I was able to get the refund and order that one. So it's on its way. That's on late antiquity. Now, most of these games are actually from the same 3 sellers, one of which is a friend of mine. One's a guy that lives in Japan that will sell to you over Facebook. And another is just this guy I ran across. So initially, I bought X-Men Mutant Apocalypse from him. I still have a really soft spot for comic games because I was really into comics during this time. And I don't know, I looked at the reviews, and the reviews seemed pretty positive. It was listed as one of the top X-Men games. And I bought stuff from him in the past. And so I grabbed this one and I said, hey, if you have any role-playing games, would you let me know? I'm trying to collect some. And he said, yeah, here you go. Well, I had one of them, but I did not have these three. Brainlord. I read a lot of reviews on this, and at the time it didn't get very high marks except for the sound. But looking at YouTube comments, people really seem to enjoy it. It's more along the lines of a puzzle game. I hear some of the dungeons are really annoying because it's pitch black, but I don't know. I figured I'd give it a shot. These are all in pretty good shape. This one has a little dent right here, but oops. Sorry about the glare. Other than that, it's in great condition, as are most of these. They come with everything, all the maps, inserts. Next up is Breath of Fire. This one does have a bit of it was kind of crunched right there, but it has all the maps and everything, so I went ahead and got it. I do have another copy of this that is really beat up, and I wanted a better one. The beat up one was pretty cheap, so I'll be putting that in the giveaway box. But I got this because I got in the Breath of Fire 2 fan translation for the Super Famicom, and I wanted to start with the part 1 first. So Breath of Fire. And this one probably has, no, I'd say the Breath of Fire ding is the worst, but Final Fantasy 3. You can see it's got a little indentation right here and little nicks and knacks. But I remember my friend having this, my good friend growing up, and he beat this 6 times in one summer. I couldn't believe it. And even though he did that, he would never let me borrow it because he just wanted to keep replaying it. Um, I did get to see part of the ending. He brought it over and finished it on a Friday night when he spent the weekend at my house. And I've actually never put a lot of time into this. I've wanted to, but when I tried to play it on emulators or whatever, it just never felt right. I can never get into the mindset of wanting to spend a lot of time with it. But I have been going through the Super Famicom games I got translated, and the first one I'm playing is Live Alive. I've completed 2 or 3 of the scenarios, and so far they're really good. The humor's great, the small touches. The combat system's a little weird because it doesn't tell you when you can actually go, or when you'll stop and when you'll have to go. Like if you cast a spell, it'll say it's another character's turn, and before you can move them, it jumps back to the other character so they'll cast their spell. It's a little odd, but I hear it really comes together in the end when all the characters join parties like they do in Dragon Quest IV. I really like that when you get to play through a scenario for each character and then they all come together. Speaking of which, I got 2 more translated. These are already in, but this is, I'm just going to say Langrisser, I want to say. I really like Masas, what is it? I think it's Masya. They have great art on all their games. I probably have about 6 of their titles, and this is their longest running series. It's a strategy game, strategy RPG, and this comes complete with the little lithograph. And like I said, I got my last batch of translated games in, and it was one of them, and so was Energy Breaker. I tried these out before I sent them to make sure they worked, and this one has a really neat combat system. It starts on a battlefield, and you have an energy meter, and you can move and act as long as there's energy in the meter, and it constantly depletes as you move. So instead of turn-based or like a version of that, like in Final Fantasy, or they have the active time system or whatever it's called. And it's real time, but it's limited real time. I don't know, it's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing this one. I might jump to this one after Live Alive. I think I'm going to do a Super Famicom collection video because I have 2 more games I'm going to get translated, and then I'll be done until new ones come out. And I really like what I've played on those so far. This was a really big surprise purchase for me. This is the Phantasy Star 1 manual, and it looks like it was never used. Now, I did pay about $14 for this, but I paid $22 shipped for Phantasy Star cart only earlier this year or late last year, and the price just skyrocketed. I have not been able to find any of the pieces. I need a better art insert. The cart looks great, and I needed a manual, and this popped up. I always have this inclination to barter when someone says they'll take a best offer. So I initially did it, and then I just thought, don't be stupid. You're never going to see it in this condition again. Just pay $14. And it was $14 shipped, and thankfully they sent it in cardboard, so it was flattened. But this is if I can get a better art insert, I'll be set. But if I can't, that's fine, because this thing I was really happy to get this. Was not expecting this at all. And from one seller, I got, this actually represents 2 or 3 bundles from him. But I'll just go ahead and I have them all up together. I picked up a better copy of Sonic Wings 2 for the Neo Geo CD. I already own this, but I bought it pretty cheap off of eBay a while back, and when I finally looked at the disc, it was really scuffed. Now, I haven't had any problems playing it so far, but he had it really cheap, and so I thought I might as well go ahead and get because there's nothing wrong with this one. It looks new. Might as well get that now while I have the chance to get it really cheap, get a good copy. So Sonic Wings 2. I think this came in one of the bundles or maybe a previous one, but Sonic Wings 3. This is a neat I've never heard of this until he had it for sale. Virtua Fighter Kids promo for Java T. And so they have, the only real difference is they have unique win poses from the original game. And I think there's a few product placements. But this was about $10, $10 I think, yeah. And I'm a huge fan of the Virtua Fighter series. I even like Virtua Fighter Kids. I think it still cracks me up even after like 17 years. But you can see it's marked with the some promo text. So I thought that was really cool. Not really a must for Saturn collectors, but I would say a must for Virtua Fighter fans. Now, I did pick up, this is a shooter called Avenger. However, that was not the game in the case. He accidentally sent me, oh, it's not in here, Psychic Storm, which turned out to be a really fun shooter. Your ship turns into like an insect-like creature. So I had a lot of fun with that, and I've got an actual copy of this coming to me, but I told him just to hold it until I order something else from him. I don't have anything in order yet, but I will eventually. He sells stuff all the time, and they tend to be really good prices. This is Asuka 120% Burning Limited. That's the spine card. That's why you can't really see it. Now, I am very interested in this because after this game came out, the developers took it and updated it and released it as an ISO. It's called Over Limited, or I think it's Over Limit. And the last week, someone translated that into English. And so I just got this in the package with this one in, so I haven't had a chance to try it yet. But I have read that it can be a little difficult. Someone released instructions on how to do it, but that link no longer works. They put it as a download. I think a friend of mine got this to work years back, and everyone says this is a surprisingly good fighter, and that the updated version is really, really solid. Like it did things before the Marvel Versus series did. So I can't wait to try that. Another Neo Geo game. This is Viewpoint. I've had a disc-only copy of this for ages, and he had the complete version pretty cheap, so I decided to give it a shot. Even though I'm not good at this game, and it's pretty generic and average for a shooter, I just love the art, the isometric angle. I have this for the Genesis as well, and I want to get it for the PlayStation 1. I don't know. Despite the fact that it's not terribly unique, I still have a great time with it, even though I've never beaten it. The Viewpoint. This is Game Paradise. It's like a parody shooter where you see if you can see the art there. They have references to other games in it, and so I wasn't sure about it, but he sold this a few times, and I missed out on it once. I passed on it a few other times, but every time he put it up, people were really into it, and so I checked out some videos, and it looked funny. So I decided to give it a go. It's from Jalico. Speaking of shooters, Einhander. This is way, way cheaper than the English one. The English price, or the U.S. copies of this, have just skyrocketed in price. I did not know that until he had this for sale, and people were talking about how good of a price it was. So I looked up the U.S. copies, and yeah, no way I was going to be able to get that. I probably would have had to have checked it out for months and months to get it something even approaching like an affordable price. And I think this was like $18 shipped. Actually cheaper than that, because when you buy multiple things from them, the shipping just drops like a rock. So that was probably more like $15. This one was a little pricey, but I've been on a kick of this lately, and I just went for it, which is Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the Sega Saturn. I have read that the PlayStation version is actually better than this one, which a friend got me from Christmas. But as being the massive Saturn fan that I am, I had to go for it. He had it at just a really, really good price. I'd say about 30, 35 plus cheaper. With the shipping savings, probably closer to 40 cheaper than eBay. So, you know, I wasn't expecting to buy it, but man, when it came up in this condition, I had to jump. I would say I'm getting pretty close to finishing off my Saturn collection. I know I said that before, but there's a few titles that were lingering that I didn't think I was going to get, and that was one of them. And the guy that sold me those role-playing games in X-Men, first, let me just say, he's the best shipper I've ever experienced. He wraps each game in tissue paper. Do you know what it's like to unwrap a game that's wrapped in it makes you feel like a king, I'll just tell you. He has it wrapped in tissue paper. He bubble wraps that. Then he puts more bubble wrap in the box. It's amazing. But he said, you know, I've actually got a lot of stuff for sale. I just haven't taken pictures of. Do you want to see a list? And that's like if you go into a game store and they ask you if you want to go in the back. You say, yes, I want to see everything you have. Do not hold out on me. So he sent me this huge, he actually sent me a bunch of photos and a list. So I told him, like, I'm looking at these, let me know the cost. And I haven't settled on anything yet, but the guy's stuff is in fantastic shape. He's a really nice guy, too. My friend got me this for my birthday, Dark Stone. He got it at a garage sale. I think it was like 50 cents. But he was asking me about it, and I remember when this came out. It's an action role playing game, and it scored pretty well for PC, and I think it did fairly well on the PlayStation. And when I told him about it, he just kind of said okay, and that was a few months ago. And he gave me that in an art book. The art's from a guy that used to do pictures for like 60s and 70s sci-fi magazines. I don't know his name because it's not on the cover of the book, but everything's stringy and elongated. It's strange art, but he found that and he got me this. So he's also the guy that got me a Castlevania for Christmas. So thank you, buddy.